What if I told you some of Hollywood's brightest stars lived double lives, fame by day, espionage by night? While the golden age of Hollywood shimmered with premieres, diamonds, and flashbulbs, a secret world thrived just beneath the surface. Some actors weren't only playing heroes on screen, they were undercover, gathering intelligence, smuggling coded notes, or charming politicians into spilling state secrets. These aren't scripts. These aren't rumors. These are true stories of Golden Age icons who played their greatest roles off the screen. Stick with me until the end, because one of these names will absolutely shock you. Marlene Dietrich. Imagine it, a muddy field hospital tent in 1944. The rain beats on canvas, soldiers slump on stretchers, weary from days of combat. And then, through the gloom, a figure emerges in a sequined gown, cigarette holder in one hand, a microphone in the other. Marlene Dietrich begins to sing. Dietrich wasn't just a movie star, she was a weapon of morale. Born in Germany, she turned her back on the Reich and pledged herself to the Allies. At the height of her Hollywood fame, she joined the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, turning her voice, her glamour, and her grit into tools of war. She recorded anti-Nazi broadcasts in German, whispering doubt into the ears of enemy soldiers. "Why fight? Why die for nothing?" she urged, her smoky tones sliding across the airwaves like velvet wrapped in steel. Imagine being a young soldier in a frozen trench, hearing that voice telling you to lay down your arms. But she didn't stop at radio waves. Dietrich went to the front lines, mud, blood, and all. Did you know she once performed so close to enemy fire that she had to duck between songs? Soldiers described her as fearless, singing in foxholes, standing in freezing rain, comforting the wounded. She called herself a soldier in high heels, and she meant it. She visited camps, hospitals, and battlefields, lugging her gowns through mud just to bring a moment of light to men staring into darkness. For her service, Dietrich received the U.S. Medal of Freedom and France's Legion of Honor. Yet when she came home, she shrugged it off. To her, it wasn't about medals, it was about doing the right thing. Dietrich's greatest performance wasn't Shanghai Express or Morocco. It was standing in a tent, singing through tears, proving that a song could be sharper than a blade. Sterling Hayden looked every bit the tough guy on screen, square jaw, steel eyes, a man carved from granite. But long before The Asphalt Jungle or Dr. Strangelove, Hayden had lived a life so adventurous it made Hollywood look tame. He was a sailor at heart, comfortable with storms and salt spray. That experience brought him to the OSS, America's wartime intelligence service. Hayden wasn't given desk duty, he was sent straight into danger. Under the alias John Hamilton, he captained vessels across the Adriatic, ferrying resistance fighters, weapons, and radios under cover of darkness. Imagine it, the night sea, enemy patrol boats prowling, Hayden gripping the wheel as cargo that could change battles sat beneath the deck. Did you know Hayden parachuted into Yugoslavia to work alongside partisans? He lived in huts with local fighters, endured freezing winters, and ran missions that would make today's action movies look like children's cartoons. The locals adored him not as a celebrity, but as a comrade. When the war ended, Hayden returned to Hollywood, yet he carried scars you couldn't see. He once admitted he found real life during the war more authentic than anything in films. Pretending to be tough in front of a camera felt hollow compared to dodging bullets on the Adriatic. His rugged performances had a weight most actors couldn't fake because Hayden wasn't faking. He'd lived through peril. The man you saw on screen was a survivor of missions no director could stage. Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee's career stretched from Dracula to Star Wars to The Lord of the Rings. He became cinema's greatest villain, his deep voice and towering frame carrying a menace that felt too real. And maybe that's because it was real. Before fame, Lee served in Britain's Special Operations Executive Churchill's Secret Army. Their mission was sabotage, espionage, and unorthodox warfare. Official records of Lee's service are still classified. And when asked about it, Lee would only smile faintly and say, "Can you keep a secret? Because so can I." But whispers followed him. Some say he tracked Nazi movements in North Africa. Others claim he assisted behind enemy lines in Europe, working on operations too sensitive to ever be confirmed. Did you know Peter Jackson once asked Lee about the sound of a man being stabbed for Lord of the Rings? Lee corrected him, saying he knew the sound from experience. That wasn't acting, that was memory. Lee's silence about his wartime service became part of his legend. He carried that aura of mystery into every role. When he played Dracula, Scaramanga, or Saruman, audiences believed in his menace because they sensed he had glimpsed true darkness. Behind the cape and the costumes was a man who had lived in shadows most of us could never imagine. Josephine Baker, Paris, 1939. The lights are low, the champagne is flowing, and all eyes are on the stage at the Folies Bergère. There she is, Josephine Baker. Feathers, sequins, charisma like electricity. The crowd roars, entranced by every step, every smile. But what they don't know is that Josephine isn't just entertaining, she's listening, watching, memorizing. Tonight's applause will echo, but tomorrow's whispers could help win a war. When France fell to the Nazis, Baker could have fled. She was already an international superstar, the first black woman to become a global icon. She had wealth, fame, and the world at her feet. Instead, she chose danger. She joined the French resistance, offering her celebrity as the perfect cover. Who would suspect a dancer of carrying secrets in her sheet music? Who would dare pat down the most glamorous woman in Paris for hidden codes? Baker smuggled intelligence across borders, sometimes written in invisible ink on music scores, sometimes tucked into the hems of her costumes. She attended embassy galas, charming officers and diplomats while quietly gathering information. The Nazis adored her on stage but never guessed she was quietly undermining them off it. Did you know Baker even used her lavish chateau outside Paris as a safe haven? Refugees and resistance fighters found shelter within its walls, hidden under the nose of enemy patrols. She risked everything, her career, her freedom, her life, because she refused to bow to tyranny. Her courage didn't go unnoticed. After the war, Charles de Gaulle himself awarded her the Croix de Guerre and the Legion of Honor. Imagine that, feathers and medals, sequins and service ribbons. Few performers in history have worn both. And when the curtain finally came down on her wartime career, Baker returned to the stage. But she was never just an entertainer again. She was a living symbol of courage, grace, and the power of art to fight back. Josephine Baker's rhythm thrilled the world. Her resistance helped save it. And in the end, she proved that sometimes the bravest warriors don't carry rifles, they carry songs, smiles, and secrets stitched into the lining of a costume. Greta Garbo. She was the goddess of the silver screen. Greta Garbo. With her cool stare, her sculpted cheekbones, and that voice, a husky whisper that turned movie theaters into cathedrals of silence. She played queens, courtesans, doomed lovers. Then, at the height of her fame, she did something unthinkable. She walked away. No farewell tour, no grand announcement, just gone. The world believed she wanted solitude. But what if that solitude hid a secret? During World War II, rumors swirled that Garbo wasn't just hiding from fame, she was quietly working with Allied intelligence. Hollywood's ultimate mystery woman may have been more than a recluse. She may have been a spy. She had the perfect cover. Who would suspect Garbo, the woman famous for saying, "I want to be alone," of slipping into embassies, passing notes, or quietly watching high society gatherings? Her European connections gave her access others couldn't dream of. Old friends from the continent, diplomats, aristocrats all still opened doors for her. And Garbo, with her piercing eyes and unreadable expression, was an ideal observer. Did you know intelligence files from the era list Garbo's name among those considered useful contacts? Some historians claim she was asked to keep tabs on Nazi sympathizers in Europe, quietly feeding details back to Allied operatives. Others believe she acted as a courier, moving sensitive information under the perfect disguise, her own celebrity. After all, who would dare search Greta Garbo? Whether her role was large or small, fact or legend, the whispers only add to her mystique. Garbo was always more myth than mortal. Her sudden retirement at the height of her career baffled the world. Perhaps she was tired of the cameras, or perhaps she had already chosen her next role, a role without scripts, without lights, without applause. Greta Garbo may have been Hollywood's greatest actress, but her most convincing performance could have been the one history never fully saw: the recluse who wanted to be alone, because she was busy working in the shadows. Cary Grant. Cary Grant was Hollywood's ultimate gentleman, tuxedoed, unflappable, smooth as silk. But behind the glamour, Grant was quietly performing a role the public never saw. During the 1930s and into the war, British intelligence kept a close watch on Hollywood, where whispers of Nazi sympathizers swirled. Grant became an informal ally, using his charm and access to high society parties to listen, observe, and discreetly report back. One story claims Grant was the one who tipped off authorities about Errol Flynn's questionable connections. The evidence was never proven, but the fact remains. Grant wasn't just playing spies on screen for Hitchcock, he was aiding them in real life. Did you know Grant also donated much of his film earnings to support Britain during the war, even before America officially joined? He wasn't just playing patriotism, he lived it. Picture it. Cary Grant at Ciro's nightclub, drink in hand, flashing that famous grin, all while his eyes scanned the room, noting the conversations, the handshakes, the faces. To his friends, he was the life of the party. To intelligence agents, he was their man on the inside. Roald Dahl. When you hear the name Roald Dahl, you probably think of chocolate factories, giant peaches, or cunning foxes. But long before he spun tales for children, Dahl lived a story of his own, one stitched together with charm, espionage, and whispers in Washington's drawing rooms. Dahl began as a Royal Air Force pilot in World War II, a young man with daring instincts and a taste for adventure. After a crash left him badly injured, his flying days ended, but Britain wasn't about to waste a man like Roald Dahl. Instead, they gave him a new assignment, not in the skies, but in the shadows. He was sent to Washington, D.C. to work for British intelligence. His mission, to influence American opinion, gather secrets, and make sure the U.S. leaned ever closer to Britain's side. How did he do it? Not with gadgets or disguises, but with charm. Dahl was tall, striking, and witty. He slid effortlessly into high society, attending lavish dinners, embassy receptions, and Hollywood soirees. There, amid the clink of glasses and the swirl of champagne, he listened carefully. Senators, ambassadors, and socialites spilled secrets freely around him, and Dahl, with a storyteller's ear, memorized every word. Did you know he worked alongside Ian Fleming, the man who later created James Bond? The two shared notes, connections, and even jokes about their strange double lives. Dahl later admitted that much of his work was a mixture of espionage and seduction, using relationships to gain influence and information. The reports he sent back to London weren't just lists of facts, they were vivid narratives, colored with detail, woven with insight. His gift for storytelling made him an invaluable asset. He didn't just pass along information, he turned it into intelligence that decision-makers could use. Later, Dahl transformed those same skills into children's books, swapping spies for giants and chocolate rivers. But the storyteller who enchanted children had once helped shape wartime strategy. Roald Dahl's life was proof that sometimes the best spies aren't silent assassins. Sometimes they're writers, weaving truth into tales and carrying secrets hidden behind a smile. Julia Child. Julia Child, the beloved TV chef with the booming laugh and butter in every recipe, spent her early career not in kitchens, but in shadowy offices of the OSS. Stationed in Ceylon, modern-day Sri Lanka, Child worked in communications, handling sensitive documents, organizing codes, and ensuring intelligence reached the right hands. Her precision was legendary even then. She treated ciphers like recipes, ensuring no ingredient was missing. Did you know she co-developed a shark repellent for the Navy to stop curious predators from setting off underwater explosives? The woman who would later perfect coq au vin once saved Allied operations from unexpected marine interference. Her OSS colleagues remembered her as whip-smart, hard-working, and unshakably cheerful qualities that later made her a household name on television. But long before she was teaching soufflés, she was decoding secrets, helping ensure Allied forces had the information they needed to win the war. Julia Child didn't just spice up kitchens, she once spiced up history. Harry Houdini. Harry Houdini died before Hollywood's golden age, but his influence as a celebrity spy carried straight into the mythology of cinema. The escape artist wasn't just a showman. During his tours of Europe, he built ties with Scotland Yard and American officials, often performing for law enforcement while slipping intelligence back and forth. His escapes from handcuffs weren't only demonstrations of skill, they doubled as tests of security equipment for governments. Did you know Houdini was rumored to have used his performances as cover for gathering intelligence on police methods, border security, and even political climates? He was the perfect operative, adored by crowds, trusted by officials, underestimated by everyone. Though some historians debate just how formal his espionage was, one thing is clear. Houdini's greatest illusion wasn't breaking chains, it was convincing the world he was only an entertainer. Behind the curtain, he was something more. Noel Coward. Noel Coward was wit personified, a playwright, songwriter, actor, and the sharpest dresser in London. But Churchill himself saw Coward's real talent: espionage. Coward was recruited by British intelligence not to sneak through shadows, but to glide through glittering ballrooms. His charm was his weapon. At embassies, he observed. At banquets, he listened. Every joke, every cigarette, every tossed-off remark was part of his cover. Did you know Churchill personally stopped Coward from serving in more dangerous roles, saying he was too valuable as a propagandist and society spy? Coward became a charm offensive, dazzling high society while secretly filing reports. He later quipped, "Celebrity was the perfect disguise." And he was right. No one suspected that the man delivering clever one-liners at dinner was quietly assessing loyalties, filing details that could alter wartime strategy. Coward lived the ultimate double act, dazzling the public by day, informing his country by night. And there you have it, 10 stars whose greatest roles weren't scripted but lived in shadows. From Marlene Dietrich's frontline performances to Noel Coward's tuxedoed espionage, Hollywood's golden age wasn't just about red carpets and cameras. It was about secrets, risks, and double lives. Which of these spy stories surprised you the most? Drop your answer in the comments, hit like if you crave more hidden Hollywood tales, and subscribe for the next reel of secrets. Because in Hollywood, every spotlight casts a shadow, and sometimes that shadow tells the real story.